All right, CNT125, Subnetting Application Lab. First podcast here. Actually, first thing we want to do is download a copy of the lab. Once I have that, we need to do a little prep work before we even get into the lab room. So first thing we need to do is we need to read through the lab, see what we need to do. Then we'll need to do some subnetting and map planning with our IP addresses. That'll get us ready for coming in the lab to do the actual rest of the lab, which, if I keep scrolling, we'll need to do a little bit of switch configuration, so that'll be a refresh from previous week. After that, we'll need to do some router configuration, which is really a refresh from the first lab you did this semester, but it'll be with our lab equipment. So we're going to give it, a name, IP addresses, OSPF, etc. And then we're going to get some traffic moving around the network and maybe troubleshoot as need be. So really, the new piece here is subnetting and putting a couple of these pieces into play in our live network. That's really what we're going to need to do. Alrighty, so first part here. We have our lab here. We skim through it. We take a look at what we're being asked to do, and we're going to do our planning. We ideally want to do this at home before we come in the lab room so we can maximize our time. So we're being asked in this company to subnet a network to fit this network map. And if we take a look, we have a simple network of site to site, kind of like the Harrisburg site, if you will, and Philly site with a network between. So we really have this LAN, and this WAN. So that's really three networks that we need to deal with, or three subnets. So we have at least three subnets that we need to do to accommodate this facility. Well, let me change that color here so it stands out a little bit more. Let's do a bright purple. Stick out enough, does it? I don't know. Let's do bright blue. That should hopefully stick out a little bit better. Okay. So we need at least three subnets. We're using this network, so we need to borrow a couple bits. Now, we could get by with, if you remember your subnetting that we did, we could get by with borrowing 2 bits, which would give us 4 subnets. I'm going to borrow 4. That leaves borrowing 2 or 3 for you to do in the lab room. I'm going to borrow 4 as an example. And then when you do this, you can do it your own, borrowing 2 or 3 bits yourself, okay? So I'm going to borrow 4. When I do that, I'm going to have 2x to the y4 is going to give me, 2 bits borrowed is 4 subnets, 3 bits borrowed is 8 subnets, 4 bits borrowed is 16 subnets, okay? Now I also have, let me put over here, my default subnet mask for this guy is essentially 255.255.0.0. If we're going to borrow 4 bits, it's going to be in this octet right here. So that means there's 4 bits left here, plus there's 8 bits left here. We actually have 12 bits left for host. So 2x to the y12 is going to give me, I might not remember that off the top of my head, so we're going to do a calculator here real quick. And we're going to say 2x to the y. Where are you? X to the y. Oh, I think I need scientific on this one. Here we go. We need 2x to the y, 12. Let's try that again. 2x to the y, 12 is going to give me 4,096 hosts per subnet. 4,096 hosts per subnet. 4,096 hosts per subnet, of which 4,094 are usable. So we got plenty. When I do that, this up here, this octet, is going to change to 4 bits borrowed, 2, 3, 4. And this will be this octet here. So this is going to become my subnet mask. And if I convert that, 255.255, this third octet becomes 240.0. So 255.240.0. There we are. And my bit count will be 8 plus 8 plus 4. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So this will be a /20 now. There's my initial planning. And if I look at the third octet, because really when we subnet, we're focusing on the third octet because that's where the subnetting is occurring. in this example. So we're going to focus on the octet where the subnetting occurs, which is this one. So if I take that here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if I pay attention to my network bits, we have borrowed to the, well, this is the 128, 64, 32, and 16 place. That being my interesting bit, 16. My subnets are going to go up by a factor of 16. So if I go 0 subnet, we do 16 subnet, we do 32 subnet, we do 48 subnet, we do 64 subnet, and so forth, okay? And if I needed to, I could always do the whole, come over here. Where's my, oops. I want to clear, clear. 16 plus 16. Enter 32, 48, 64, 80, 96, and so forth. Okay, 80, come back over here. I need my text tool again. 80, 96, etc. Okay, so now that I have my subnet number, let's get the broadcast. Well, if this octet here, this third octet starts at 0 and this one at 16, this over here has to end at 15. 16, 32, this has to end at 31. 32 to 48, this has to end at 47. 48 to 64, this has to end at 63. Oops, 63. 64 to 80, this has to end at 79. Okay, this is one less than the previous range. 95. Now, that's the third octet. Let's tag the fourth octet on. Well, hopefully you remember our rules. Fourth octet for host. Fourth octet when we're dealing with network number is going to be all zeros in the host portion. So the nice part on this one is we can just add the fourth octet as .0. .0. And go right down the line. Oop, that got a little messy in there. Let's fix that guy. 48.0. All kinds of extra characters in there. Look at that. 64.0. 80.0. 96.0. Okay. So network number, host portion is going to be all 0. Zeros in the host portion. So I can literally tag on this fourth octet up here as .0 for every single one of those. Broadcast address will be all ones in the host portion, if we remember our rule. So here I can tag on .255. .255. .255. Because all ones in the host portion would be .255. And so forth. My usables, well, this is 0.0. The first usable is going to be 0.1. Remember the example we used with driving your car down the road? The odometer increments on the far right number. The odometer increments on the far right number. So my first usable is going to increment by 1. So these will be 16.1. This will be 32.1. And 48.1 and so forth. These are the real important ones that we need today. These are the really important ones we need today. These are the ones that are actually going to get assigned to things in my network. Now, the last usable is going to be one less than this. Pretend I'm driving backwards a mile. Again, don't do that. Don't drive backwards a mile. But pretend we're going to do that. So 15.255, well, the last usable would be 15.254 if I drove backwards a mile. Again, don't do that. Just pretend. 31.254. One backwards from here. One backwards from here. 47.254. Again, one backwards from here. And these are the super important numbers that we need for our usable addresses. 79.254 and so forth. And I'll fill in one or two more here. I don't actually need all these today, but oh my goodness, 254. There we go. Now, what I might do, since I'm typing in here, I might actually save this as I go here so I don't get too far down the line and lose my progress. I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to do that folder, and I'll give it markup so I know that this is my marked up copy of the lab. All right. Now that we have our subnetting chart done, we can now use this to help us fill out our network map with the numbers we need. Okay, so these are directions that are going to help you do that. We're going to work our way down through. Well, I'm going to stay on this page and just start filling out. The first thing we're going to do is put the subnets in here to basically label the streets. Think of this as like streets of a town. Elm Street, Oak Street, Maple Street. Well, I need to label them. So I'm going to label these, but I'm going to label them with the subnet number. And I'm going to use these right here, these subnet numbers here. I'll use 00, 16, 0, 32, 0. So I will do 00 here, 0.0 subnet. I'll make this 16.0, and I'll make this 32.0. There's my 3 subnets. Now, anything on this LAN, the addressing must come from this subnet. Anything on this LAN must come from this subnet. Anything on this LAN must come from this subnet. So what I'll do is I'll take this subnet now, and I'm going to use the usable addresses here, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, and I will start using them to assign to the devices on that LAN, the interfaces, the devices on that LAN. So 0.0 is the subnet, so this up here needs to become, well, we were using 172.16. I think that's what we're using as our plan, right? 172.16, yep, 172.16. So we're going to use 172.16, and I'm going to say .0.1. That's the very first usable address off of this subnet, so I'm going to give it to the router. My subnet mask is going to be, well, it's going to be the one I determined it was. I'm going to try to fit all this in here. Actually, I'll do it this way. 255.255.240.0. And then my bit count would be that /20. Okay, the /20. That'll be the router interface for this network. The next usable I would assign to the switch. So 172.16.0.2. Again, subnet mask. I'm having trouble squeezing them all in here. So my subnet mask 255.255.240.0, and a bit count again /20. My workstations are going to come from that network as well. So 172.16. Oh my goodness, 16. 0. All right. Well, I'm going to use 10 here. I'm going to leave a couple of these IPs free in case I would be doing stuff like printers or servers on this network. So I'll make him .10. Again, subnet mask 255.255.240.0. Oh my goodness. 240.0. And the default gateway is the router port I'm attached to. This guy right here. 172.16.0.1. 172.16.0.1. Excellent. I'm going to pause while I fill in a couple more numbers, and I'll show you what I did. All right. Just so you didn't have to watch me type. Up here on this link, I said was the 16.0 subnet. So these IPs 16.1 and 16.2 need to come from this subnet, and those get assigned to the 2 router ports attached on this link. This is the 32.0 subnet, so these addresses need to come from the 32.0 subnet, so 32.1, 32.2, and then 32.10. I just jumped up to 10 to leave a couple numbers free for servers, access points, whatever. The gateway address here, 32.1, comes from, I'm going to follow this up here, 32.1, right there, that interface. I now have my map completed that I'm able to sit down with my switches and routers and start my configuration. I would save this and have this ready to roll before you get to the lab room.